This day in sports history. You found it, the one and only daily sports history podcast dedicated to what happened on this day in sports history. This Day in Sports History is a member of the Sports History Network, and you can find more at sportshistorynetwork.com. It's October 28th, and in honor of Game 3 of the World Series tonight, let's go back to 1981 when the Los Angeles Dodgers closed out the World Series over the New York Yankees. The 1981 postseason was a bit of an anomaly at the time, though now it would look normal. Major League Baseball had gone through a strike during the season. It started on June 12th, and then the strike ended August 8th. Because of that, the owners decided to split the season into two parts. The winner of each of the two divisions in both the American and National Leagues in each of the halves of the season would advance to a divisional series. Of course, now we have the ALDS and the NLDS as part of the postseason, but that did not officially start until the 1995 postseason. But this also led to some teams being left out of the playoff picture, despite having a better overall record than the teams who qualified as the winners of each half. The team that got hosed the most was the Cincinnati Reds. The Reds had the best record through the shortened 108-game schedule than any other team in baseball. But since they were a half game back of the Dodgers right before the strike and a game and a half back of the Astros at the end of the second half, they didn't qualify. In the American League, the Yankees beat the Milwaukee Brewers in the ALDS and swept Oakland in the ALCS to advance to the World Series. LA beat the Houston Astros and the Montreal Expos to make their way back to the Fall Classic. And due to all the extra postseason play, this was the latest starting series by the calendar, and it also wrapped up later than any series up to this point. This was a rematch of the '78 series that the Yankees had won in 6 games. But this time around, it was the Dodgers repaying the favor in the same way. This was Game 6 in the Bronx, and despite it being in the American League ballpark, they were not playing with a designated hitter in this series, which would play a pivotal role in this one. Game 2 winner Tommy John got the start for the Yankees, and he cruised through the first 3 innings. Now, this was still part of the era when pitchers threw complete games. If you were effective, kept runners off the base paths, runs off the board, you stayed in. Pitch counts be damned. Well, John had gone the distance 7 times during the shortened regular season, and he had thrown 16 complete games the year before. But according to a book written by Bobby Mercer years after this series, meddling owner George Steinbrenner ordered manager Bob Lemon to pull John if they got an early lead and then let the bullpen take over, which the Yankees' bullpen had not been very good that year. This was their plan, and it did not work. With the game tied in the 4th inning, John was pinch hit for. Again, no DH in the series. Mercer flied out, and John was done for the night. He paced the dugout looking like he wanted to strangle somebody after being pulled. In the 5th, Pedro Guerrero tripled home the Penguin Ron Cey, and the Dodgers scored 3. In the next inning, the Yankee bullpen continued their spectacular collapse, giving up another 4 runs. Guerrero sank the dagger deep in Yankee hearts with a 2-run single. He added a solo shot in the 8th, and the Dodgers won 9-2 and wrapped up their World Championship. For the Yankees, this began a long postseason drought. They would miss the playoffs for 12 straight seasons and did not make it back to the World Series until 1996. On this day in 1995, the Atlanta Braves brought a world title home to Georgia for the first time. The Braves had been one of the best teams in baseball in the first half of the decade. They'd won the National League pennant in '91 and '92, but had come up short in the World Series. This was Game 6 between the Braves and the Cleveland Indians, with the Braves winning Games 1 and 2 by a single run. Cleveland won Games 3 and 5 by a single run. Game 4 was a blowout, comparatively speaking, with the Braves winning that one by 3. Game 6 was played in Atlanta's Fulton County Stadium, but the hometown crowd was a little less than friendly to one of their own. In that morning's Atlanta Journal-Constitution, an article quoted Atlanta outfielder David Justice ripping into the lack of emotional support shown by Braves fans in the series and praising the Cleveland fans instead. His first few plate appearances, Justice was booed, but all was forgotten after his plate appearance in the 6th. Here's NBC's Bob Costas with the call from that night.
1-1 pitch. A long drive to right. Ramirez turns to the track. She's gone. Day of justice. All is forgiven in Atlanta.
Bob, it's okay to talk the talk if you can walk the walk.
Thanks to Braves starting pitcher Tom Glavine, that was all the scoring he'd need. Glavine was masterful on this night and nearly unhittable. In fact, it was not until the top half of the 6th that the Indians picked up their first and what would be their only hit when Tony Pena singled for the Indians. Glavine pitched 8 complete, gave up just the 1 hit, struck out 8, and walked 3 on 109 pitches. Mark Wohlers came on in the 9th to close it out. Not only had the Braves players and fans waited a long time for this moment, but so had Braves announcers who'd covered a lot of lean years for the team back in the 70s and the 80s. Here's longtime Braves announcer Skip Carey with the final call from that night.
51,000 plus on their feet. Nobody's left to beat the traffic tonight, I guarantee you. Mark gets the sign. The wind and the pitch, here it is. Swung, fly ball deep left center. Grissom on the run. Yes, yes, yes. The Atlanta Braves have given you a championship. Listen to this crowd. A mob scene on the field. Wohlers gets them 1, 2, 3. The Atlanta Braves have brought the first championship to Atlanta.
5 of the 6 games in the series were decided by a single run, and just as Carey said, it was the first championship for the city of Atlanta in any sport. On this day in 1962, New York Giant Y.A. Tittle put on an aerial show. The Giants were playing the Washington Redskins, and Tittle threw 7 touchdown passes in a 49-34 win at Yankee Stadium. He completed 27 of 39 passes for 505 yards on the day. The 7 TDs in a game had been done 3 times already. Sid Luckman back in 43, Adrian Burke in 54, and George Blanda the year before in 1961. It's also been done 4 times since. The last to throw 7 touchdowns in a game is Drew Brees back in 2015. Brees also equaled Tittle's 505 yards passing in that game. Now, one thing that Tittle is known for is a play he called the alley-oop. In a 1957 game against the Detroit Lions, when Tittle was playing with the San Francisco 49ers, he came up with a play in which he tossed it long and high in the air for 6'3" R.C. Owens to go and get. He connected with Owens on a game winner against the Lions, and it was the first time that the term alley-oop was ever used in sports. Now, we would call it a Hail Mary today, and of course the term has been co-opted by basketball. But the next time you hear it in a basketball game, you can explain to your friends the origin actually traces back to football and Y.A. Tittle. On this day in 1973, LA Laker Elmore Smith set the NBA record for most blocked shots in a game. The 7-foot-tall Smith rejected 17 shots against the Portland Trail Blazers. He played all 48 minutes and went ahead and recorded a triple-double as well, adding 12 points and 16 rebounds. And as we talked about a few days back, 1973 was the first year that the NBA started keeping the blocks stat. So it was fortuitous for the man who earned the nickname the Rejector. Manute Bol and Shaq have come close to equaling the record. Bol rejected 15 shots twice in his career, and Shaq blocked 15 against the Nets back in 1993. To go along with Smith's 17 blocks, Gail Goodrich poured in 49 points in a 111-98 win for the Lakers over the Blazers. And on this day in 1995, Serena Williams made her professional tennis debut. She was just 14 at this point and played a qualifying match in Quebec City. She'd been given a special exemption since this was after the implementation of the age eligibility rule, or what would become known as the Capriati rule. It was put in place in '95 as a means to restrict players under the age of 16 from playing too many tournaments and burning out. Now, on the other side of the net was 18-year-old Annie Miller, who had also just turned pro. Serena remembered being incredibly nervous, which is understandable. The result did not give any indication of the greatness that was on the way in a few years. Miller beat Serena 6-1, 6-1. Serena went back home, worked on her game, and did not return to the court again as a professional until 1997. And time now for today's Got Nothing to Do with Sports Fun Fact. In the Humpty Dumpty nursery rhyme, it is never mentioned that Humpty is an egg. The nursery rhyme first appeared in print in 1797, and it wasn't until Lewis Carroll's 1872 version of Through the Looking Glass that it was depicted as an egg, and has been depicted that way ever since. Humpty Dumpty was first used in the 1600s to refer to an alcoholic beverage made from brandy boiled with beer. Now, popular theories are that Humpty Dumpty was really either a 16th century cannon that fell off a wall and broke into many pieces, or a reference to King Richard III, who was killed in battle. Those theories are a bit light on fact and heavy on fiction, though. That's all I've got for you today, but you know that I'll be right back here tomorrow with another edition of This Day in Sports History. This has been an original